Okay, guys, we're coming up on 11:45, so let's settle down and we'll get this thing a-rolling. So we're going to bring this workshop to a begin here. We're going to start out with interviews for the Budget Committee candidates, and I've got a list in no particular order, but I guess you guys were scheduled at this moment. So we are currently be interviewing for the Budget Committee candidates, starting out with Christina Solgo. If you want to come up and make sure your light is on there, introduce yourself, and just give us a couple, like just a little short synopsis of why you want to be part of the Budget Committee, and then we'll throw some questions back at you if you don't mind.
I missed the very first part of what you said. Do I need to turn anything on?
No, you're on.
Okay. All right, good morning, first of all. A little bit about myself. I currently work for the Rogue River School District as the Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and School Board Secretary. I do have some other, can you not hear it? Okay. I do wear some other hats within my district as Budget Secretary, Notary, and several other areas of interest. Maybe, I don't know if they'd pertain to the Budget Committee, though. So.
Perfect. So we will bring it back to the council here. If anybody's got any particular questions they want to throw out. Anybody jump? Victoria?
What do you think would be one of the most important contributions you would bring to a budget committee, this budget committee?
Okay, I would say attention to detail. I realize the budget is already very well organized. However, in my experience looking at numbers all day and spreadsheets, I think additional eyes is always important on any kind of document. And so I think just following behind, collaborating with the others, and looking it over and seeing if I can contribute anything that I see that needs to be adjusted or otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we got Indra and then maybe Rick.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for coming. What do you think will be your greatest asset on the Budget Committee?
I've been in my role currently for 6 years. So while that's not a long time, in that time I've had the opportunity to, in each of the roles that I have, to watch the collaboration and to watch the effect of working as a team, how that affects the immediate community and in my case, the families in our community. So for a budget committee for a city, I think that it's really important to take into consideration how everything does affect the community. So I would be mindful of that to answer the question clearly. Yeah.
And then Rick.
Thank you, Christina, for applying. You maybe already partially answered this. What do you feel is the role of the Budget Committee?
The Budget Committee receives the proposed budget and the budget message and works with, in this case, I would imagine the council to ensure that the community's needs are met with the goal of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And then Eric.
Hi. Do you have any experience in group process and decision making? And please describe.
Okay, absolutely, yes. As the board secretary, a lot of what we do, a lot of conversations happen with the stakeholders, with the community, and that requires a lot of collaboration. And from that, to Councillor Nicholas's point as well, from that it goes out into the community. And so I'm able to see the effects of those group processes, what happens within it. So.
Perfect, thank you. Looks like Joel and then Kathleen.
Thank you for applying. What is your relationship to conflict and how do you feel about it?
My relationship to conflict, can you expand on that a little bit?
You got a full field. You can define it however you want.
Okay, so okay, I gotcha. So I'm in the context of, I'm gonna say a budget committee, let's say there's disagreements with how things are allocated. I think it's gonna be important to work through that, hear out the others. Everyone's voice matters. I think other people's perspective is incredibly important, and I think it's essential to understand that everyone brings something to the table. So I asked you to clarify that, but truthfully, resolving conflict, I think that's a pretty good method across the board, is to hear people out and appreciate their perspectives as well, and work through it, yeah.
Thanks. Kathleen?
So, hi, glad you're here. The expectation of the Budget Committee members is that they do their homework and prior to the meetings by familiarizing themselves with the allocation of resources and the strategic plan. How do you feel about that expectation?
I fully support that expectation. I think that's critical. You don't ever want to come into something as important as this unprepared. So if I am appointed to the committee, I do look forward to reviewing the strategic plan and the budget documents and just diving right in. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else got questions? Victoria?
So are you able to commit to the time that it will take to be on the budget committee?
Yes, I am. I do see that it's on mostly Thursdays and Wednesdays. My board meetings are on Tuesdays, so there shouldn't be a conflict there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Not seeing any? Okay. Thank you, Christina. You want to give us a couple parting words?
Just thank you for your consideration, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we've got Heidi. Okay, we are a couple minutes early, so she is on her way down. If we can hang for a second, that'll be great. So just so you guys know, council here, we do have a list of questions if you guys want to go through those, and it is kind of incumbent of you guys kind of addressing these candidates to get a full feel on them. So don't hesitate to jump in and ask questions. Good morning, Heidi. Step up to the podium and give us your name and just a little blip of who you are and why you want to be on the Budget Committee.
Oh, okay.
Please and thank you.
I'm Heidi Napier. I'm a retired veterinarian. I've lived in Grants Pass for 7 years, and I want to be on the Budget Committee to be a little more involved in the local government, and because local government is where I can have an effect. Federal and state is pretty much, that's pretty tough. But so, and I'm retired, so I have time to volunteer. Unless you guys want to pay me. No.
Oh, that one's going to fall on deaf ears with us.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question? Joel, thank you.
Thank you for applying, Heidi. What is your worst outcome of this budget process, and how do you feel about it?
The worst outcome?
Yeah, what's the worst that we can do as on the Budget Committee, and how do you feel about it?
Well, basically, excuse me, enlarging the size of the city government and raising taxes, because everything has got to be paid for, and I pay for it. You know, I mean, we all pay for it.
Thank you. Rick, then Indra.
Thank you, Heidi. What do you feel is the role of the Budget Committee?
What, the role of the Budget Committee? Well, to look at the budget and see where money is going.
Okay, thank you.
And then Indra?
Glad you're here, Heidi. What is the greatest asset that you bring to the Budget Committee?
Well, I have a lot of experience volunteering sometimes in budget processes of various volunteer organizations, church, pony club, master gardeners, and I also have a lot of experience working for small businesses. That's what I've always done, and I know what it costs to run them. I know what the expenses are, reasonable and unreasonable.
Thank you. Indra? Oh, sorry, Rob and then Eric.
So to kind of piggyback on Joel's question, but looking at kind of the reciprocal of that, what would be your, rather than your biggest fear, what would be your greatest hope of what the outcome of the Budget Committee would be?
You know, I would have to look at the budget and see where the money is going and where it's coming from. Basically, to lower the cost of the city government, that's what I would like to see happen.
Thank you. Eric?
Thank you for applying, and please describe your knowledge of the city of Grants Pass
Describe my knowledge.
in terms of the budget.
Oh, the budget. You know, all I really know is what I read on, mostly on the computer, and it sounds to me like there's some money being wasted, let me put it that way. Yes, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, thanks. Kathleen and then Victoria?
Hi, Heidi. What is the most important financial issue facing the city, and why is it important?
The most important financial issue? I would say probably the number of employees and what they do, because that's always the most expensive part of any kind of a business, is what the employees cost. You know, that a lot of money goes into that. So that's a big one.
Victoria?
Hi, Heidi. Do you have experience in group processes and decision-making? And if you do, will you describe those, please?
Yes, it's mostly my experience in volunteer organizations. Like I said, my daughter was in Pony Club for years, and I helped organize that. And Master Gardeners. I was on the board for Master Gardeners, and I taught classes, and you know, that was somewhat of a financial thing. They don't spend a lot of money, and it was all volunteer, but so there's that. And then church also, because you know, when you're on the board of a church and you're deciding what kind of programs to put on and how much to spend.
Perfect, thanks. Looks like Rob?
So Heidi, you just touched on briefly, I think, possibly like the elephant in the room that I'd like to hear a little more about, when you said that one of the concerns that you have is that you're concerned that money's being wasted, that somehow, you know, you've heard or you've seen or whatever about the possibility of money being wasted, and you'd like to, I guess, work on that. So in what areas have you heard, or do you perceive that money is being wasted?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is supporting the homeless people and the money that's been spent on providing them services. And the other thing is the NGOs, which take money from the government, I mean federal and local.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Heidi. You want to leave us with just little parting words on why you want to be part of the committee for the budget?
I'd like to know more about what's going on in the city and be involved in making decisions if the budget committee does that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up we got Tom Bradbeer, and he is on his way. Perfect. Good day, Tom. Step up to the microphone and tell us who you are and give us a little bit of why you want to be on the Budget Committee, sir.
All right.
And then we'll throw some questions back at you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. My name is Tom Bradbeer. I'm a resident of Ward 4 in Grants Pass. I was on the Budget Committee previously, 2 terms, and I found it to be very interesting, very challenging, and I think the work of the Budget Committee is very worthwhile. So I'm in a position now where I would like to join that process again, and I'd be glad to respond to your questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Do we got any questions for Tom? Kathleen?
So, hello, Tom.
Hello.
To follow up on that, what is incentivizing you to come back at this point?
I think the city faces some real significant challenges with regard to the budget. I think there will be changes coming as a result of the change in the administration in Washington that is going to affect all levels of government. And in responding to that, I think one of the issues that the Budget Committee needs to look at is how local government operations can become more efficient. And as a member of the Budget Committee, I would like to work with others to find efficiency measures within the city's budget that can be responsive to the challenges that we're going to be facing.
Perfect. Thanks. Joel?
Tom, thank you for applying unconditional respect to you. So one of the best outcomes I heard you talk about was increased efficiency.
Right.
What do we need to learn that we do not yet know? So there's something out there we don't know that the Budget Committee needs to know to increase efficiency in city government. What do we need to learn?
I'm not sure I want to try to answer that question directly, but I would like to share with you how I would go about arriving at an answer to that. And that would be to first look at the data and to analyze each of the budget requests from the perspective of how can we improve service and reduce cost. I think it's important to distinguish service level reductions from increased efficiency. They don't necessarily go together. Efficiency can actually make service levels more effective depending on how that efficiency is achieved. I would also want to discuss what it is we need to know with other members of the Budget Committee, the Council, staff, and if appropriate, the general public. But I think the process of arriving at the answer is as important as what the answer is.
Thanks, Tom. Victoria?
Hi, thanks for coming.
Yes.
You have been on the Budget Committee before. Could you describe what you think are some of your best contributions to the budget in Grants Pass? Another way of saying that, how did the city benefit from you being on the Budget Committee in the past? Your greatest accomplishments?
Well, I'm not sure I'm the one to answer that question. Perhaps others would be more responsive to it. There were a couple of policy issues that I was involved in analyzing as a member of the Budget Committee. And I want to say right away, I understand the difference between policy and resource allocation issues for the Budget Committee within existing policy. But the Budget Committee was working with staff particularly to find ways to increase funding for public safety. And we went through a whole range of alternatives, and one of them was the new utility fee for public safety. I was in favor of that, and I think it was a very courageous act of the council to adopt that fee. It's made a tremendous difference for public safety. I noted that in the last 3 years, the public safety budget has increased by an average of 11.8% per year in 23, 24, and 25. So roughly 36% increase in 3 years is a wonderful accomplishment for the council and the Budget Committee. And I believe I played a small role as an advocate for that policy.
Perfect, thanks. Looks like we got Rick and then Rob.
Thank you, Tom. So describe your knowledge of the city of Grants Pass and your knowledge and experience in the city of Grants Pass.
Wow, that's a big question.
Well,
I've lived here for 30 years.
Okay.
And I have property that I've invested in, and I rely tremendously on city services of all types. And as a result, I have volunteered to be a part of discussions with the city. I think public safety and housing are the most important topics for the Budget Committee to be addressing. But I also think it's important to look at each of the funds in the budget, general fund, enterprise fund, the capital accounts, the urban renewal agency. These are all separate, almost silos. There is some interaction. But I think it's very important to maintain the distinction between the activities in the enterprise fund and the general fund and capital fund, and recognize that they all play an important role in the totality of service provided by the city.
thank you.
And then Rob.
Yeah, Tom, thank you. I think that of all the applicants, I guess I saved my most valuable question, at least what's valuable to me, for you, because I think that you can probably give me some insight. So every year for however many years, 40 years or something, the Grants Pass gets some excellence in budgeting award or some such from the state. and every year our budget is supposedly balanced. But I personally actually don't believe the budget's balanced, and I'll explain why, and then I ask my question. So from an operational perspective, it's balanced, you know. We don't write any rubber checks to employees or providers and so forth. But, you know, until 2015, the city basically went 80 years without putting any money away for a new water treatment plant. And we basically went about 60 years without putting any money away for a new swimming pool. We've gone about 20 years without putting any money away for a new skate park. So it seems like we budget for the things we want to budget for, but in reality, every year that we're not putting money away for those different future needs, we're actually in the red. It's not a balanced budget. So what could, if you agree with that, and you know, you don't have to, but if you agree with that, what can we do about that?
Well, a balance in the budget is required by law. The operating budget must be in balance, and in fact, the policy of the city is to have at least a 25% ending fund balance in the general fund. So that, if you will, surplus indicates that there is no issue about the budget being in balance. But what you're referring to, I think, and I do agree, that the capital accounts need greater attention. Long-term investment issues for the city are very critical. And if we can find efficiencies in current operations, I would hope that that would be added to the Land and Buildings Fund, particularly in an account that would be dedicated to investments in government efficiency. There are many machines, equipment, software that could improve efficiency, but it will require investment in order for those to be realized. I would also add that actually there are examples of the city anticipating major capital needs and setting aside construction funds to meet those. The most prominent example recently is the water filtration plant project. There is about $30 million in the capital construction account of the water department for that project, which is a result of the $13.50 a month water plant replacement fee. To save over the last roughly 10 years, $30 million of local taxpayer, ratepayer funds is a tremendous accomplishment. I think it's important to keep in mind that a multi-generational asset like the water treatment plant really ought to be paid for by not only the current ratepayers, but future ratepayers. So in that sense, I think there's a strong case to be made for bonding the balance of what's needed for that plant, particularly in view of the diminishing likelihood that a FEMA grant will be available. Whether it's a general obligation bond or a revenue bond, it seems to me is a very good discussion to have in the Budget Committee, because that becomes the resource allocation decision, recommendation, that would support that capital investment, and with the perspective that you're suggesting, that there be other capital improvement projects that are funded in advance of the need, I think the Budget Committee would be supportive of that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Still, there's a lot more discussion and work that has to be done, but yeah, I get it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. Andrea, you have a question?
Yes. You mentioned earlier that federal and state governance is going to affect us locally. Can you name specifically the challenges you see us facing locally as far as it relates to the budget?
There are federal funds that are built into the city's budget and the city's activities, the city's departments. The Community Development Block Grant is an example of that. The FEMA grant for the water plant that I mentioned already is an example of that. And again, to be complete or thorough in answering that question, I would need to do further research and hopefully interact with staff and members of the Budget Committee to identify what those challenges are and will be, and find ways to resolve the conflict that's created. The process is as important as the specific outcome.
Thanks, Tom. It's very refreshing to see that you have the foresight to bring up those topics, and something that you would be looking forward to on the Budget Committee. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, Tom, we'll end with you, and if you want to give us a couple parting words and why you think we should put you on the Budget Committee.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today about this. I think the city is well served by the strategic planning process that establishes goals. The Budget Committee then works within the goals established in the strategic plan to make recommendations regarding resource allocation that are effective in addressing the issues the city faces. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we got one last candidate to come up. Looks like he's coming up here. Edgar Pelfrey will be joining us shortly. Mr. Pelfrey, if you come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and then just give us a little blurb on why you want to participate in the Budget Committee. Thank you.
So my name is Mike Pelfrey. I am a city resident, have been since 2016. And I guess the best answer that I could give you for why I would be willing to volunteer for this position is that my sole purpose is to make our city as great as it can be. So I'm willing to put myself in a volunteered position to do whatever it needs to do to make that happen.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. We'll probably have a couple questions for you. Victoria?
Can you tell us what expertise you have that you would be able to bring to a Budget Committee?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I have been an independent financial advisor for 37 years. So literally, I've lived my life as a budget committee person, meaning that when I sit down, whether it be an individual client or a small business, and I've worked with many of those in 37 years, my number one priority is to look at their situation, evaluate their needs, but most importantly, make their position better than the way I found it. And so for 37 years, I've helped my clients not only achieve, but thrive with financial independence. And that's what I would hope for the city of Grants Pass as well.
Thank you. Eric?
Hey, Mike, thank you for applying. What is the most important financial issue facing the city, and why is it important? What other financial issues face our city, and why are they important?
Well, of course, I've never been on a city budget committee, so we won't know a lot of that until we open up the books and dig between the weeds, and we'll be able to see exactly what the city of Grants Pass is doing in regards to their budget. But I will say this, I've lived my life this way. I share this thought and idea with my clients, and at the end of the day, whether you're a city, you are a small business, or you are an individual, you have to make sure that you have more money than month. Now, you understand what that means? That means that you got to make sure that you do your budget so well that you have money left over. I listened to the previous interview from the gentleman, and Rob asked a really fantastic question in regards to this guy's thoughts as far as the budget and his expertise and so forth, and a rainy day fund, a slush fund, i.e. And so at the end of the day, the city of Grants Pass, just like what's happened with the county, and we've seen this pretty much in Zoom now, and that is they relied so long on the revenues from the forest industry that they didn't prepare for what's to come in the future. And I would say the same thing with the city of Grants Pass. You have to prepare for the unexpected. And so by doing that, you'll be able to face these type of projects and these type of bumps in the road a whole lot better. But if you just shoot from the hip, you're going to get the end result from that.
Thanks. Everybody's hand up. Let's go with Indra first, Rick, and then Kathleen.
So you mentioned you work a lot one-on-one with clients. What is your experience in group processes and decision-making within groups?
Well, you know, in 37 years, I've been on a lot of committees in the financial services industry. I spent 23 years in Arizona and Scottsdale, so I was involved in a lot of different, I'll just say, in different avenues. I've trained people for this business. So from a group standpoint, I think I do extremely well in a group setting. Of course, I'm only one voice, but I hope to be a very strong voice, and at the same time, listen to others and see what they bring to the table, and then hopefully as a group we can come to some type of conclusion that's in the best interest of our city.
Rick?
Thank you for applying. Someone answered this already, but what is the role do you see of the Budget Committee?
Well, I think the Budget Committee is pretty much the checkbook, in a sense, to the City of Grants Pass. We need to take a look and see where exactly the city is spending their money, and if there is any cost-saving measures that can be done where it doesn't hurt the overall operation of our city, then I think that should be something that should be looked at, especially because that's what we have to ask everybody that sits in our audience that attends these meetings. You know, we as individuals and as business owners we're faced with those same decisions. So a city government is no different. As we see what's happening in Washington, D.C., what's actually being proven is that we have tremendous waste in our country. And my guess is it's not just at the national level. That waste trickles down. We mentioned, I think the gentleman earlier mentioned something, or the gentleman before me mentioned something about he's concerned that because of what's happening in Washington, it's going to find its way in local budgets. There's no doubt about that, because my guess is Salem is an ideal prime target for I would say what President Trump is doing in Washington, D.C. and his team. And I think that ultimately, once he opens the books, or hopefully someone opens the books and sees exactly where the state of Oregon is spending their money, that's going to have no choice but to come down into cities like Grants Pass.
Thank you.
Kathleen and then Joel.
Thanks for coming, Mike. What specific contributions do you hope to make to the Budget Committee?
I would say that I bring 37 years of I would say 37 years of passionate experience in helping any type of client that I've done business with make their financial situation better than the way I found it. So the ultimate goal would be the same for the city of Grants Pass. If I'm going to put my name and my time into something, I want there to be something that comes out of that, and the only way that's going to satisfy myself or anybody else on this committee is that we make Grants Pass better than the way we found it. I don't care if it's the budget, I don't care what it is that this city does. Our job, whether you're a volunteer, your job as city councilors as well, your job is to make our city the best that you can make it. And that's exactly what I'd ask for myself as a volunteer.
Thanks. Joel.
So Mike, and it's okay to say Mike rather than...
You can call me whatever you want to call me.
I'm going to call you Mike. I like Mike. Okay. So your communication style, from my perspective, is very much like a fire, very explosive, and that's okay. It communicates the thought. It's high energy. It can be intimidating at times. Not all people communicate like that. And I don't know if it's their parents or whatever. There's some people that communicate like a deep pond of water. And they sit back and they don't say much, but they're thinking. And there's other people that are like the wind, and it's just blowing here and blowing there, and they'll just tell you what they think. And then there's other people like rich dirt. And if we're not careful, the rich dirt will put out the fire, or the fire will evaporate the water, when people interact. And so with your style of communication, which isn't bad, how do you foresee that playing into effective teamwork on the Budget Committee?
Well, this is going to be a very easy one. When I come to these meetings, and I have 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I hope, to be able to share the way I feel about the direction that the city of Grants Pass has gone in since I moved here. I don't care who you are. If you're happy with what you see today, then we have issues. So the difference between me working in a budget, it's no different than when I have a client that comes to my home, because I do work out of my house now, and I call the very first meeting with the client, and I look them in the eyes and I say, you know, this is a two-way street. And what I mean by that is you're going to be evaluating me as your possible financial advisor, but I get to evaluate you as whether or not you're a good fit for my practice. So what we're going to call this meeting is we're going to call this a gut feeling meeting. And so we're going to get to know each other. We're not going to talk business. We're going to just get to know each other, and I'm going to learn a little bit about you. You're going to learn a little bit about me. And then when we part ways, we both have guts. And you need to rely on yours, and I'll rely on mine. And at the end of the day, if you feel that I'm going to be the right fit for you, your gut is going to tell you that. So because I'm a passionate individual that loves my city, and I get up here and I use every 2 minutes that I possibly can, that has no difference in how I work within a budget or a committee. If I was sitting in the chairs that you're sitting in, you would see a whole different person. So I'm not saying I'm a chameleon, but I will tell you this. I've never seen a microphone that I didn't like. And I will honestly tell you that I will tell you exactly how I feel, but I'm also a professional. And that's why I've been in practice for 37 years. I've never, ever had a client leave me. What I love is there's times when I've actually fired clients. That's the best part of my job is actually being able to fire a client. Because what happens is you start out in a relationship and it may go this way, but then all of a sudden someone changes the parameters of that relationship. Well, guess what? You're no longer a good fit for my practice. So I don't mind telling someone that, you know, perhaps I'm not the right advisor for you. So I'm pretty confident that if I'm sitting in a committee behind closed doors, I'm going to be just fine talking to whoever is sitting at the table with me.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else got any last questions? Okay, perfect. Thanks, Mike. You want to give us a couple parting words on why you want to be on the Budget Committee?
I started out with my beginning words, and I'm going to finish with the same words, and that is this. My job, whether it be a citizen or sitting on a committee, is to make my community the best it can be. And I will work my butt off to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
People are supposed to be sequestered as they're, you know, so they don't get to hear what the answers were before, and I just want to make sure that that is still happening, because it evidently didn't happen in this case. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What we've done is...
Thank you.
Yeah. We normally try, and that's why we have these scheduled, and we have the individuals waiting up in a room.
Right.
They come down.
But I guess he said he was watching on YouTube. So
Yeah,
I guess
what
there's
that
nothing we can do about
individual's
that.
doing on their own time before,
Right.
we don't have any control of.
Thank you.
That's the beauty of having publicized meetings. Yeah. Yeah. So we just went through, just give us 1 second. So we just went through, I just want to make a note to you guys, for the Budget Committee, there are 2 other applicants that we previously interviewed that will be on the docket for Wednesday night, along with the 4 that we just interviewed now. So that'll be a total of 6 applicants that you guys will consider on Wednesday. Just wanted to throw that out there Yeah, for 2 positions, I believe. But yeah, just to not discredit that, those other 2, we just didn't feel that we needed to have another interview with them. So let's move on to City Council Ward 3. We have council candidates available for interview, and we're going to start with Seth. And I apologize, is it Benham?
Yes.
Thank you. Why don't you introduce yourself and then just give us a little blurb on why you're interested in being counselor for Ward 3.
Yeah. Is this working? Cool. Yeah, my name's Seth Benham. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for having me up here, and I want to thank the ones that I was able to meet with over the last week, which ironically originally was planned to meet about Main Street, Grants Pass, and then this whole opportunity arose at the same time. But yeah, a little bit about me. 29 years old. I was born and raised here in Grants Pass, Oregon, and I currently have a wife and 2 young daughters. I think I've lived in Ward 3 for probably 6 years now. I've owned my business for a little over 10 years now, so since 2014, right after I graduated high school. I own a marketing agency, and we have clients locally and nationwide, and we employ and have employed local employees as well. I think, putting my name in the hat for this position, I just want to help where I can. I've been in the community for obviously a long time. And, over the last 10 years of owning my business, I've tried my best to network and get out there and do what I can. About a year ago, helped found Main Street Grants Pass, which I know some of you know about. I presented here back, I think, in September on behalf of Main Street. And so that's become kind of a new passion of mine, is just helping specifically downtown, but, Grants Pass in general. I'm on the board for Southern Oregon Aspire as well. And, I think, too, I'm young. I know a lot of young people that want to serve, so, hopefully I could be an inspiration. And, like I said, just get out there and help the community however I can.
Thanks, Seth. We're going to probably hit you up with a few questions here. First, Eric.
Thank you for applying, and thank you for showing up. What do you see as the greatest challenge being a city councilor?
Well, as being a counselor, or just in general, the city,
City councilor.
Well, I think it's obviously going to be probably the time commitment, right? And just that dedication, which, I've got a lot going on, obviously, but I feel like, I'm just at a point in life where I'm trying to give back and trying to serve. I was recently actually, one of the other reasons I guess kind of doing this is the small reason, but I was actually at the inauguration in Washington, D.C. back in January, and I don't know, just felt inspired by, everything going on, and felt like, let's step up and put my hat in the ring and serve the community. But, definitely, right, the time commitment and just being available. I will say, being self-employed, I have flexibility. I wouldn't be able to do Main Street Grants Pass without that. But, I think everything kind of plays into, what my goals are, and just making Grants Pass, a great place for everyone. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks. We got Rick, and then Rob, and then Kathleen. So, Rick.
Thank you, Seth, for applying. What do you see are the major challenges facing the city?
Yeah. I think probably everyone's going to answer homelessness. I think that's probably one of the top ones, which I would say, it's a national problem. I don't think it's just Grants Pass. I think there's a lot of people that think maybe it's just Grants Pass based on the last year and the Supreme Court ruling and all that. There's a lot of attention brought to it. But, that's an issue that I don't think really anyone has the perfect solution to. I think it's everyone has opinions and ideas, and so how do we come together to make a positive change in one direction, right? I think there's never going to be a final answer. But beyond that, obviously there's the funding for police and fire. That's a huge issue, and that's one that's been around for a long time. And then, economic development, which I'm passionate about, obviously with Main Street Grants Pass. I also do a lot of work with Visit Grants Pass, so that side of the coin is important as well. You know, and I think improving economic development, which is a lot of things, ultimately will hopefully improve all of these things as time progresses. You know, that's one of the things, like I said, that I'm passionate about, and just helping improve businesses, not only downtown, but in all of Grants Pass, you know, bringing tourists from outside the area, making Grants Pass a more livable area for people. You know, I mean, obviously the cost of living is high right now, and that's a issue plaguing the entire country, but yeah, economic development is one of the big ones for me.
Thank you.
Thanks. Rob?
Yeah, Seth. So you keep using the term Main Street, and you know, as you know, I mean, I was at the, I guess, the kickoff event for that, so I have a pretty good idea what that is, but I'm pretty sure that there's probably people on the dais that aren't quite up to speed on that. So can you please explain what that is, briefly?
Yeah. So about a year ago, a little over a year, I think last January, there was an event held at the Wild River Pub. It was an audit put together, I believe, by Visit Grants Pass and the city, kind of a co-joint audit. They hired an outside firm to come in and kind of just review, you know, Grants Pass as a whole, focused on downtown, and they interviewed a lot of local businesses. I actually encourage, you know, if you haven't, and I can send it to everyone, it's called the Downtown Roadmap. It's a pretty well put together document. And, you know, basically out of that, interviewing local businesses and, you know, seeing what the needs were, out of that arose, you know, we need a program or an organization to help kind of just coordinate efforts, specifically in downtown. You know, we always, I call it now the four-legged stool, the four-legged table. So we've got the City of Grants Pass, we've got the Chamber of Commerce, we've got Visit Grants Pass, and now we've got Main Street Grants Pass. And so our efforts are solely focused on downtown, right? Everyone has their kind of individual areas and specialties, but we're focused on downtown, and part of that is the, you know, revitalizing downtown, bringing grant money into downtown, helping be a voice for a lot of these local businesses downtown as well, you know, and just overall promotion of downtown Grants Pass, because I believe there's a lot of people, even within Grants Pass, that may either because of COVID or whatever reasons are, just don't go downtown as much anymore. But I think there's a lot of benefit, and there's a lot of things going on, and so I'm very passionate about how do we, you know, bring the energy back up and yeah, promote it and help these businesses.
So just brief follow-up. So, because I haven't been very closely involved since the kickoff deal. So is there a focus with Main Street to potentially bringing back to the 50s or things of that nature? Because I know that was a really big loss when we kind of lost our ability to do that, and I haven't been involved in the last year much, so.
Yeah, so that's, I totally missed that point. The other huge thing of what Main Street is focused on, and also Main Street is a national organization. There's Main Street America, there's the state level, which is Oregon Main Street, and then each city can opt in to have its own. Cave Junction has a Main Street, Medford has a Main Street, there's a bunch of cities within Oregon. But another piece of that is event coordination. You know, there's talks about potentially taking over Art Along the Rogue, but the big one that we want to bring back is back to the 50s. And so we have, right now, are currently forming the board. I'm the president of the board, you know, and so again, that's one of those ones that we're really focused on, is back to the 50s to really bring that economic drive to downtown.
Thanks, Seth. I appreciate the explanation and everything, but we're going to kind of bring it back center because I think we got a few more questions here. Yep. Kathleen and then Victoria.
Thanks for being here, Seth. Have you thought about any policies you're interested in seeing the City Council enact, repeal, or revise?
Yeah, you know, I thought about this question, and I don't know, it's a hard one to answer. You know, I think I'm coming into this, I mean, you know, sure, maybe policies that I have in my personal mind, but I want to come into it with an open mind. I want to work with the current council to identify, you know, what are some of these policies that we need to focus on. Obviously, there's ones that you are all focused on right now, and so however I can come in and help, you know, push those along and make a positive change. I also think, you know, as being a council member, you know, listening to the community and seeing what they say and seeing what kind of policies they also want to see enacted, modified, changed. So I guess I don't have any like hard, policies right now on the top of my mind that I'm coming in saying this is what I want, but I want to work with all of you and the community as a whole to hopefully implement those.
Victoria?
Hi, thanks for coming in. How do you conceive of the relationship between the city council and the administration side of the city?
Yeah. I think, well, half the council is new, so it's probably hard to kind of say right now how that is, but I will say from just past experience, past councils, the conversation I've had, it's always seemed positive, right? I mean, obviously there's probably times when, things are a little bit harder than others, but I think overall, based on my past experience, with counselors and just just being in Grants Pass for so long, that, the ultimate goal, right, is to create a working partnership between the city and the city council, so.
Thanks. Indra and then Joel?
Hi. You touched on challenges our city faces, but what do you see as the greatest challenges that specifically constituents in Ward 3 are facing?
In Ward 3, I mean, I think, the homeless challenge is obviously, I guess it just depends on, which ward you're in. But I mean, I know in Ward 3, there's been times when that's come up in discussion based on, placement of various organizations, nonprofits, campsites, whatever that may be. I don't know if that's affecting currently right now, but that's definitely been one. I think overall, housing's a big one, and obviously, even in Ward 3, right, there's that need for more housing, cheaper housing, things like that. So I would say, again, but that affects the whole city. I don't know exactly, or wouldn't say there's one specific need in Ward 3. I don't think that's, not affected by everyone in the entire city. So.
Thanks. Joel?
Seth, I appreciate you applying, and you're a smart guy. And I say that not as a smart aleck, but intelligence. So I'm trying to phrase this question correctly. Okay, a year from now, you're appointed to council. What does success look like? And what do we need to learn to get there that we don't know now to get to that success point a year from now?
Yeah. I think success is defined differently by everyone. I think, as coming on to council, right, I'm one of 8. And so I think just working together as best as we possibly can. I think my views on a lot of things probably match up with a lot of your views, but that does not mean that I'm fit for council or fit for this position just because of that. And I think, we may all have different ideas as well along the way. And I think it's about just, listening to the community as well. I want to come in and just help that cause as much as possible, stepping back and thinking through issues and problems that arise, because I'm young, I'm new to this, right? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to learn a lot. It's probably going to be like drinking through a fire hose, I'm assuming. But, if we can come together united and, make decisions that are beneficial for the entire community, I think that's going to be, the number one priority. And so hopefully in a year from now, those progresses are made, and we're making progress towards a better Grants Pass, a better community. We're solving problems within the homeless crisis, even though we're not going to be able to figure it all out. It's about one step at a time. I always believe one foot in front of the other every day. So.
Thanks, Seth. Joel? I looked right at Rob and I said Joel. Rob?
So you mentioned you've had your own business for about 10 years. Is that the same business for the whole 10 years, or?
Yeah, yep. Marketing agency for 10 and a half years now, so.
And how many local employees do you have?
I have 3 right now. I've had more in the past that have, come and gone, so.
And you said you had some clients in Grants Pass and some outside or some nationally, or?
Yeah, I mean, we work with Visit Grants Pass. We work with, nonprofits in Grants Pass as well as Medford, Ashland, and then, we have clients nationwide as well.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Indra?
You've worked on other boards, or at least one other that you mentioned as well. Do you feel like it's important for boards to reach consensus in decisions, or do you think 5-3, 4-4 decisions are okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think, if 5-3, 5-4, whatever it is, I mean, I think consensus is going to be hard to come to in most situations, right? Everyone's going to have a different opinion. Although, ideally, towards the end of it, and when, the decision is made, I think the people that may have an opposite viewpoint, hopefully we can come to some agreement or some middle point where it's accepted and, we're all in it together. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Seth. We've taken quite a bit of your time at this moment. Do you want to leave us with any parting words?
I will say, I just want to say why I love Grants Pass, because this is one of the things I've been thinking about. And, I travel for work and for fun fairly often. And, although I'm excited to leave town, I will say I don't think there's been any place I've traveled to in the United States and outside the United States that I have not come back to Grants Pass with a renewed viewpoint and, excited to be back. And I think that, although we have struggles and we have things that people disagree on, and whatever that is, I think there's a lot of good things about Grants Pass that we should prop up that maybe people don't think about that live here, on the day-to-day, because you kind of just go through the grind. But we do have a lot to be thankful for in Grants Pass, and so hopefully maybe that can be a part of me being on council as well as, bringing awareness to that.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Okay, we got 3 more candidates. Looks like Brian coming up? Sorry.
So Brian hasn't showed up. Mario is going to be about 15 minutes late, but I have Dwayne out here.
So let's bump Dwayne up and take him next then. So Dwayne Lumpkin. Come on in, Dwayne. Come up to the podium and give us your name, and then tell us why you want to be, why you applied to be a candidate for Ward 3 councilor position.
Is the button, okay, microphone's working.
Should be good.
Well, I've grown up in Grants Pass. My entire family lives here, has small businesses in Grants Pass. I really care about the community, and I've seen things in recent years that have caused all of us concern, and I'm hoping to find some ways to turn things around in Grants Pass. That would be my motivation for applying for the position.
Perfect, thanks. We'll probably get a couple questions for you. Anybody got a question for Dwayne? Kathleen?
Hi, Dwayne. Thanks for coming. How do you perceive the relationship between the city council and the administration?
Well, it's my understanding that the council sets the agenda for Grants Pass, comes up with a budget, priorities, and they rely on the city administration to do the legwork and the day-to-day carrying out of that agenda. I also think the city administration, because they have much more experience than the volunteer counselors, are leaned on to provide guidance on issues and perhaps the history of that issue, and just bring them up to speed so they can make educated decisions about whatever matters before the council.
Thanks. Rick, and then Victoria.
Thank you for applying. What do you see as the major challenges facing the city?
Well, I think economic development is the biggest issue facing Grants Pass. I don't think you can do anything else if you're not thriving economically. I think sadly Grants Pass has become the poster child for the issue of homelessness. And I would love to find a way to set those issues aside, to deal with them in the interim until the current court case can make its way through the courts, and move on to other issues that would benefit and affect a greater percentage of Grants Pass residents. I mean, those seem to be the two biggest issues to me: economic development and homelessness.
Thanks. Victoria?
Hi, Dwayne. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Have you thought about any policies you are interested in seeing City Council enact or repeal or revise?
Sure. There are always unintended consequences to any legislation or new rules or fees that the city applies. So, one in particular I know of is there's a office building on the corner of 6th and G that has 4 stories and 1 entrance and 1 exit, but it probably has 20 offices in it. And then there's a shopping center up on Vine Street that has 8 suites with 8 entrances and 8 exits. And the business on Vine Street pays 8 times the sewer bill that the building on 6th and G pays, because that apportionment of the sewer bill is based on entrance and exits of the businesses. So, I mean, that's one specifically that I understand there might be a process to appeal that for the landowner. But if I've only heard of that one, I imagine that there are unintended consequences to other sewer bills or people paying more than they probably should, and they don't know that they have any recourse. There's also a franchise agreement between the city and Republic Services and Grants Pass Sanitation that doesn't allow a person that hauls trash or cleans up people's properties for profit to do dump runs at the facilities, either out in Merlin or the one on Redwood Avenue. And I'm not exactly sure how that came about. Those franchise agreements have been in place since 2000, so for 25 years. And they seem to be increasing revenue to the trash services because those people are allowed to have a dumpster delivered to the property, throw everything in the dumpster and have it hauled off, but they can't haul the trash off the property to the dumps themselves. And then change of use permits is an issue that I've ran into with small businesses that I've owned, where if there's a site you're interested in that has been, say, an office and you want it to become a retailer or a restaurant, I think there's pretty cumbersome regulations in place for getting a change of use designation for that space. One in particular is the old City Hall that had been under control of Rogue Community College, and a parental teaching organization went in there to help parents parent better. And even though that had been Rogue Community College and an educational facility, they were still required to get a change of use permit that required an engineer and plans and all kinds of things that would not have been required if that change of use designation hadn't been in place. So, I mean, those are 3 that I know of off the top of my head, but I would really like to take a deep dive into, matters that residents bring to us as city council members, and see if there's ways to either appeal those designations, a system in place, or maybe roll them back or amend them in some way.
Thanks, Dwayne. Rob, and then Indra.
Yeah, thanks, Dwayne. I think you've touched on several things right now that I think we all intuitively know sound correct, because we kind of know that some things need to be cleaned up and changed and made a little more user-friendly. But to shift gears, let's just, a couple of hypotheticals. let's assume that we go through the budget process, and as a city councilor, you would be part of that budget process, of course. Let's assume that the city council goes into the budget hoping to find more money for public safety. And let's say we come out of the budget process without a significant release of funds or transfer of funds to be able to do fund public safety to the level that the council might feel is appropriate. So two hypotheticals. In that situation, where council wants to do more for public safety, but we haven't been able to find in the budget, where would you propose the money comes from?
Well, one of my basic political philosophies is the government that governs best is a government that governs least. So if it's ever an issue of taxation to the residents or increasing the burden on the residents of Grants Pass, I think if that was part of the plan, it would most definitely have to be put to a vote. And hopefully the city council could convey the need for increased public safety and convince the public, because I know they're reticent to increase their taxes or their fees. I don't know if part of that has been messaging in the past, but I wouldn't be comfortable sitting on the council increasing any of those things without it going to a vote of the public. And, I would certainly be taking a look at the budget and seeing where cuts might take place to help fund public safety.
Thanks, Dwayne. Indra?
Thanks for being here, Dwayne. You touched on challenges of the city. Do you know or see any specific challenges that face the constituents in Ward 3 in particular?
I have talked to people out in my ward, and I know there's a sense that there's a little bit of an inordinate number of businesses related to homelessness that are happening out in Ward 3. The On Track facility, which I think will be good for the for the city, is happening on Rogue River Highway. Mint is moving forward, I believe, with a low barrier or no barrier shelter next to Bi-Mart. Options has their new building there. The Oregon recycling can position is right there on Rogue River Highway. So there just are lots of campers in the park next to Fruitdale Elementary School and Morrison Park. And I just don't know if there's, if Ward 3 is seen as the redheaded stepchild of Grants Pass, and it's easy for people on this side of the river to place all those services in Ward 3. But I know the businesses, in the Bi-Mart area, in the South Y, somebody just spent a lot of money redoing the building in the South Y, and I know they haven't had any luck getting a tenant for that newly renovated space. So I would just look at other parts of the city to potentially place those services, not have such a great amalgamation of them in that area that it becomes the logical choice to just pile more and more in Ward 3.
Thanks. Looks like Eric, you got a question?
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
What do you see as your greatest challenge being a city councilor?
I imagine that would be taking direction from my constituents in Ward 3 and kind of towing the line as far as my political philosophy of less government is best government. I think when you get in a position like city council, you can be convinced that there are other options or be misdirected into concerns from people in possibly another ward. And I just would really hope to focus on Ward 3 and the problems there. I mean, I think that's why there's 2 counselors from each ward, so we end up with a balanced representation in the city of Grants Pass for residents.
Thanks. Anybody else got any questions? All right. I had a clarifying question. It sounds like you're very embedded, if not invested, in the community. So how long have you been in our community?
Well, I was born in Medford, so I'm an Oregonian by birth, and I've lived in Grants Pass off and on right after I was married, worked at Boise Cascade, but lived in the Bay Area, lived in Portland, and have been back in Grants Pass full-time for over 25 years. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Any parting words on what you think why you want to be Ward 3 councilor?
Sure, I have a lot of questions. I don't know how much control City Council has over certain matters, but, I have observed that the big construction projects related to the city are going to Salem and Medford construction companies. That would be Adroit and Outlier, and the construction company for the new water treatment center. And I don't know if there's a way to weight the bidding process to favor Grants Pass residents. I think if Grants Pass construction companies were doing public works projects in Grants Pass, that there would be a greater amount of money staying in the Grants Pass community from those projects. It's kind of hard to see all of that work go to construction companies from outside our community, and the money from those construction projects going outside our community. That's one area I'd like to look at. And then as far as, I've identified some businesses that I think could be approached to possibly grow into Grants Pass. One would be a Amazon hub for their delivery vehicles, and another would be a Restore store for Habitat for Humanity, like they have in Medford on Highway 99. And I wonder if there might be a way to put a portal on the city website that showed commercial and industrial properties for lease, and kind of served as a conduit between property owners in Grants Pass and businesses from outside the area that might be interested in locating their businesses or growing their businesses into Grants Pass. So I think it would take me a little time to know exactly what power the city council would have to enact some of those things, but I'd like to think outside the box. And I noticed Ashland was just named one of the top cities in the country for film, and I don't know if Grants Pass has any contacts with the film industry or could develop that kind of business coming to Grants Pass. I really think the goal to everything is having Grants Pass thrive financially, and then that would allow the money for public safety and hopefully to address the homeless issue and other matters that are facing Grants Pass.
Perfect. Thanks, Dwayne.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, next candidate up is Mario is coming up. Come on up to the podium and give us your name, and then give us a little bit of, just a quick blip on why you want to become councilor for Ward 3, and then we'll throw some questions back at you.
Oh, sure thing. I actually didn't want to become councilor for Ward 3, but I'm happy to help, and all of these wonderful folks here, or at least most of them I've already met with, and look forward to working with you all together in a way that can improve our city.
Perfect, thanks. Anybody got questions? Rob?
Yeah, thanks for coming. Since I wasn't one of the ones that was invited to meet you, I guess I was looking at your application, and since it was basically blank or completely blank, I had to look at your resume.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and I have a couple of questions, or a few questions about the resume. So I didn't know, starting at the top of it, district sales manager for that company, Pinnacle. Mm-hmm. And I looked at your resume, and it said you started there in 2008, and then I Googled Pinnacle because I didn't really know what they did. Uh-huh. And I'm not sure, is that 2008 year correct? Because when I Googled Pinnacle, it said that they started in 2011. company didn't exist till 2011 when I Googled them.
You probably Googled the wrong company. Pinnacle
I may have. What does
Security.
Pinnacle do that
Yeah.
you work for?
Yeah, they were purchased by Golden Gate Capital in 2009, so you definitely Googled the wrong company.
Okay, so the Pinnacle that you work for, what do you do? What does that
What
company
did I
do?
do there?
Or-
I ran sales teams.
Oh, do you work for Pinnacle now or no?
Oh, no, it's been a long time.
Oh, it says on the resume to present. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. May have been the time that was
Okay.
on there. Yeah. I haven't had to do my resume in a very long time because I've owned companies for, oh gosh, quite a while now.
Okay, so let me just get down the resume a bit, and then maybe someone else will ask you about what you do now.
Sure, yeah.
Down the bottom, it says licensed for health, life, and code in Oregon.
Yes,
And
sir.
I have no idea what that means. Can you tell me what that means?
Oh, of course, yeah. Selling insurance. That was one of my first things when I was 18.
Okay. So you're licensed for life, health, and code. Oh, life insurance, health insurance, and something else.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I never even bothered to write a policy with that. I was so heavily recruited into technology when I got back from a service mission in Guatemala. But I did get licensed just before I left. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And then there's a few other things. I'm not sure when you say, I guess it says you did the mission that you just
Yes, sir.
mentioned. I guess most people do that at age 19 or whatever, something like that.
Whatever age, yeah, is best. Yeah, in my case, I saved up and went at 19. Yeah.
Okay.
I lived in Guatemala for 2 years.
So, all right, and I guess my last question about the resume then, because there's things on the resume from, I guess, 4 years before that, which would have meant you would have been like 15 years old or something, some of these on the resume?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those are businesses you did in high school or?
Yeah,
something like
you're,
that?
like I said, you're probably looking at one of my older resumes, but
I'm
that's
the only one I
not-
have.
Not surprising because
sorry,
I
it's the only
haven't
one I
had to
have.
have them for a long time.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Nice to meet you in person, Rob.
Thank you for being here, Mario. What do you see as the greatest or a couple of the greatest challenges that face the constituents of Ward 3?
Oh, great question. Where do we start? Well, I think obviously there are some loud and very public challenges that are, very well documented on social media and other areas, and of course in these meetings in City Council. But then I think there are some underlying concerns that we need to get back to, our roots of what the city actually does and focuses on, right? And that would be our infrastructure, our fire and police, right? Our economic development. There are a lot of things that we can do for the citizens and the businesses of this city that I think that everybody here in the past has made good efforts to do. And I wouldn't say that I'm going to be any better necessarily at doing those kinds of things. What I can say is I have a lot of experience with financial statements and with the way businesses are run and the way organizations are run. And that serves me in a way that hopefully we can help together in taking what the citizens actually need and what the business owners of the city actually need, and try to put all that into a, some kind of action plan that can significantly help us.
Thanks.
And
Victoria.
you're not Councilor Nicholas, right? Are you Indra? I haven't met. Okay, wonderful. Look forward to meeting you in person. Yeah.
Victoria's got a question for you.
Hi, Mario. Thanks for coming in. Why are you interested in serving on the city council?
I'm really not. As I said before, I've had a few people ask me to help, and the more I look at it, the more I'm like, well, if nobody else is available to do that, I'd love to help. I'm very busy. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a business owner, multiple businesses, and now real estate and things like that. So I have a lot on my plate, and we serve a lot locally already, but if I can't help it, it would be my pleasure to do so.
Thanks. Joel.
Thank you for applying, Mario.
Hi, Joel. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. So I got to phrase this question right, so I don't have to. You can answer any question you want, okay? I'm just going to give you a question to expound on.
Okay.
Okay. What is your relationship to conflict generated by 4 different things? A power struggle, change, somebody's different than you, been raised different or whatever. And then the last conflict would be based upon some scarcity. We don't think we have enough money or time to do that. What is your relationship to these conflicts, and how do you feel about it?
Wow. Joel goes right in there, doesn't he? How much time do you want me to take, Joel? Okay, you got it. Wonderful. Oh, gosh. Well, I personally don't feel I handle conflict well, but I've experienced a lot of it, so I'll tell you what I've done then. So I try to look at everybody's best interests before my own, and think what's best for them. And I feel like if we truly care about our neighbors and our friends and the business owners around us and the folks here at City Council and the city manager and all of the folks involved in our specific conflicts, then we can perhaps listen to understand before we speak to be understood. Right, and I know your question was very broad, and I might be going somewhere completely different from where you're thinking, but I mean, I think that if we maintain our lives and our relationships with sound principles, then a lot of those conflicts just come from misunderstandings, and sometimes we just won't see eye to eye on everything, but we can agree to at least be respectful and communicate and move forward in a way that tries to serve the best that everybody needs around us.
Perfect, thanks. Rick and then Eric.
Thank you, Mario. What do you see the major challenges facing the city?
Great question, yeah. So again, I think our fiscal responsibility is paramount, perhaps not number one, but the reality is that we can't serve the people around us without sound fiscal responsibility and sound business development principles. And if the fiscal responsibility is taken care of and managed appropriately, it's still not going to make us suddenly have money rain from the sky that we can solve all of these problems with a snap of our fingers, but we can at least focus on a couple of the key problems and say, okay, this is where we want to start, 2025. We only have a short amount of time. What are the key issues facing us, right? And of course, we all know that the unhoused situation is a significant factor, especially with the factors that we have against us currently. But there are things that we can do to not table that, but to ensure that the responsibilities that we have set before us are taken care of in a respectful and functional way, and then move forward to the things that are most pressing towards our city. Because the reality is the city really doesn't have a responsibility to provide a whole lot of social, safety nets and things like that. We'd love to help. We're not monsters, but we have to determine what's best for everybody with the short amount, the small amount of funding and resources we have available to us. Yeah.
Okay, Eric and then Rob.
You may have touched on this question slightly, but what do you see as the greatest challenge being a city councilor?
I don't know yet. I'm hoping that I'm not too broad-sided by all of them, but I feel that time and energy and attention span would have been my biggest constraint, and I've brought those, concerns to many of you, and you've all helped me understand that the reality is most of what I'm needing to do, I already do as a citizen, but now I can take whatever my expertise and activities are currently, I can take those and actually apply them towards being perhaps an even more helpful citizen as serving in the city council, a few nights a month, and then of course a few days a month with various things and meetings. But a lot of the reading and the education that I do, I'm actually already doing. I'm just doing it on a more public, like social media and other areas type level. So I think if I could get more accurate, truthful information that's a little less biased, right, then perhaps I can be even more helpful serving as a part of the city council.
Thanks, Rob, and then Indra.
Yeah, I was hoping somebody else was going to ask, but I'll go back and ask then. You've mentioned your current business and what you do and everything else, but I still have no idea what you do or what your current business is.
Oh, yeah. So I run a technology conglomerate, but I also own real estate, and we own security businesses as well, fire businesses, integration. We do a lot of business phone service and, a lot of other services that businesses need. We provide that. So I'd love to chat more. I understand you're a business owner yourself.
So what's the name of one or two or three of your businesses?
Sure. High Tech Security is one of them. Caveman's another one. We just started another one. Hang on for just a second. Skycrest Plaza is another one, real estate we just purchased.
So what's the difference between Caveman Security and High Tech Security? Because I only want the best one. I don't want to get a guy with a club. I want something a little more modern. What's the difference?
Sure, that's a great question. I'd love to chat with that more in person, since it's a little bit more, I don't care so much about me necessarily. I just want to help.
Thanks, Indra.
So you seem very, very busy, as we all are. I, too, am a business owner, and I have not been into my shop maybe twice in 4 days. So the city council is a huge commitment of time, and especially new, it's almost, a full-time job. There's a lot of reading and just talking to people and meeting. I just want to feel confident that you feel like you have the time to commit to being on city council.
I want to feel that confidence too, Indra. No, seriously though, I really didn't for it's been probably a good 8-month process since I think I first talked to Victoria and some of the folks about a different, because you were initially setting up people to campaign for these positions. And I think that's been probably my number one constraint this whole time is like, please, if you have somebody else, push them, right? But more and more, the more I see, I find that, I really am spending a lot of that time already and having those conversations and gathering that information. It's just, now I can do it from a more invested level, hopefully, and help out on a better level.
Thanks, Mario. Anybody else have any questions? All right, Mario, I'm going to ask you for some parting words on, sell us if you think you can do the time commitment. What's your last parting words to change our mind to vote for you?
If you have somebody else, please take them.
I love your candor.
No, seriously though, I do. Everybody that I've met so far, and I think all of us probably have rubbed shoulders in some capacity or another, if not with you directly, at least with family members and connections in small social circles. So, I'd be delighted to work together with you on problems that may not have an easy solution, and many of them we may not even be able to address, right? But at least we can focus together on what's going to be best for our children and our families and our community and our churches and everything else. So.
It sounds like you got some compassion for this city, and so, if you aren't chosen for Ward 3 council member, I would encourage you to stay involved with the city. There's going to be lots of committees and lots of outreach that we do. So thank you for your time for today.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, Karen, do we have our last person?
No, he never arrived.
Okay. Then I guess we will conclude that with, so you'll have to basically, council, you'll have to take Brian Bailey at his submitted documents and for your consideration. So that will conclude our candidate interviews. Looks like we need to select a council liaison to the Public Safety Advisory Committee. Can we get a little synopsis on when they meet and what the time constraints would be for that? to become a liaison? Aaron?
I'll speak to the time. Their first meeting is scheduled for February 25th at 9:30 a.m. At the Public Safety Training Room, and their schedule is not quite yet determined. This is their first meeting.
What day of the week?
Tuesday.
So the first meeting would be Tuesday, the 25th. Do they have any anticipation on a time schedule, or it's still up in the air?
No, it's, as Karen mentioned, this is a new committee, and depending on what they want to do and how they want to accomplish the tasks associated with the purpose of this group, it could be that they meet a few times a month in the beginning. It could be that they meet monthly. It could be that they end up meeting quarterly. So we don't know what that is yet.
So with all of that great information, anybody want to volunteer for Public Safety Advisory Committee Council Liaison? Rob, question?
Yeah, I would volunteer for it. If somehow it turned into a weekly thing, I might have to give it up, but at once or twice a month, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, Rob has shown some interest. Anybody else? Rick?
I'd be happy to volunteer, and also I could see it be a shared position, that if there are a lot of meetings, one person could go to one and the other person could go to the other.
Okay, Eric?
Same as what Rick just said, but my time is, obviously, like everybody else, is pretty valuable with a full-time job, so I'll have to consider, same thing what Rob was saying, if it turns into a monthly thing or a weekly thing, that might be too much.
So out of you guys, who can commit to the 25th?
Well,
Rob?
I can commit to the 25th, but if other people feel strongly that they want to do it, I'm okay letting them do it. But
Are we,
that's
Aaron,
fine.
are we at one liaison?
I think it's important that we stick with one liaison. That's the way it's written, and it's likely that it'll be on a monthly basis, that they'll be meeting, if not quarterly. We have really no advisory committee that meets weekly or every other week. It's primarily.
I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be somebody doing it, but I'm happy to have somebody else on the council that I trust do it. That's fine.
So if we go on the premise of you can make the 25th, then it would be a monthly basis. Is that, who wants to raise their hand for that? Eric? Rick? Okay. Now, if Rob and Rick are okay with that, we'll give it to Eric. Okay. And if the time constraints come as it unfolds, it's a little bit different. We can revisit this topic and have another conversation. All right. So Eric's cycle will be for council liaison for the Public Safety Advisory
Can we
Committee.
go ahead and get a motion approving Eric as the liaison for?
Sure. Can we get a motion on that? Indra?
I motion to approve Eric for the liaison for the Public Safety Advisory Committee.
Looks like we got Joel as a second. All right. Just go through a roll call vote. Rob?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Kathleen? Joel? Victoria?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, let's roll into agenda review. Anybody have any comments, questions, problems?
Clint?
Yeah, Rob?
So,
Yes, sir.
questions about tomorrow night, the voting process for Budget Committee and also for Council, because the last time we did a vote thing, we didn't do it in a transparent way. In other words, it was a secret ballot when we did, and that's, I feel, completely inappropriate. So I just want to make sure we know how we're going to do it. And I'm not sure, let's see how many, do we vote for any one of these positions until someone has a majority of the number, whoever has the highest number of votes, or how is it going to be done?
So for the Budget Committee, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 2 positions available. So that would be putting 2 people in for the Budget Committee. We interviewed 4 people today, and we have 2 previous interviews, so that's 6 people for 2 positions. And then for the council, we had 4 applications and 3 interviews, so you got 4 people. The council position would be easier, but when you've got the 2 positions open, I'm up for suggestions. I'm, you've spent more time on the council, Rob. I just remember it's always kind of been a piece of paper, but if you want it, it's going to have to be consensus of the council. So if anybody has a motion to put forth a voting style, then do it now. Sorry, Victoria?
We should vote for budget committee one person at a time, and then vote for the second person. And the person who wins the first ballot will obviously be out of the vote, because it should be one council person, one vote. And the same with the city council person. That is just one ballot, and everyone gets one vote. And that's a motion.
Little discussion here. Go ahead, Rick.
So years ago, we came up with a preference list, because then you had the opportunity to take a survey of the entire council, and you could indicate somebody you're in favor of, and then the mayor would indicate who got the highest number of votes, and then you went from that preference list to a motion to nominate. The opportunity that gives, you can vote for somebody, in reality, it's not going to get it, but yet you recognize the people in their willingness to volunteer. So you give recognition for that. But again, there's the other thing we've seen in the past. If you just have the floor open to the first person that makes a motion to nominate, it can be a popularity contest, because then it's who raises their hand first, and then to come afterward with another recommendation. Sometimes that never happens. But the thing is, the procedure, and I recognize the procedure is still there, even if you have one person being nominated, somebody else can be nominated also, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. So it's up to the council how they want to go.
So just to clarify, Rick, you were suggesting, as it's been done before, a preference list where everybody voted on a piece of paper. It's announced that the majority of the council has a preference for this person, then you wait for a motion for someone to, and then a second. And that was what you were just trying to explain. I just was clarifying, summarizing. Okay, Rob had a comment? Or a question?
More specifically, I think that Victoria's concept of voting for one person at a time on the budget committee, could work, in other words, but it doesn't really it doesn't get to the core of my question. Let's just say, because it's easier to talk about the council position, let's say two different people get 3 votes and somebody gets 1 vote. At what point, so what happens then? Do we then throw out the one who got 1 and we revote? Or specifically, how does that work if it's a tie, 3-3-1? How does that work?
I understand your question, and it kind of goes back to what Rick was explaining is if you had a piece of paper with all 4 names on it, there's a tally of a preference list, and then somebody would make a motion to nominate XYZ for council member, and then that's voted on. So it's kind of, I look at it like it kind of simplifies it down. And there's transparency, because the end roll call vote is the transparent vote. Is that how you wanted to explain it, Rick? Okay. Does that make sense, Rob? And then Aaron's got to add here, and then Victoria.
I think one of the things that Councilor Pell was talking about is with the preference poll, do we make note of who said what for preference? So when it comes in, does the mayor state, Councilor Pell has preference for this person, Councilor Riker has preference for this person, et cetera. And then you have a total tally of the preferences. Then it's up to council to bring it, like the mayor was saying, that's just a preference, that's not a vote. And the mayor could say, hey, we've got a tie, we've got 3-3, so I'm looking for a motion on the table for your preference. And you can have a motion, and after that motion, you can champion one person over the other or something along those lines. But I think one of the issues was, do we have clear who voted for what preference before an actual vote happened. So if that's what you would like the mayor to do, just have council be clear tonight that, or today, that when he receives the preferences, that he's stating who voted, whose preference is for who.
Victoria, I've got some question, comment?
Yeah, I think I need to understand a little bit better, but let me describe what I would like to see, and I think it may, I don't know, address what Rob was saying. I think each person, some of the processes that that people are talking about are a little bit like ranked choice voting, and that's something that I would absolutely want to avoid. There's 7 counselors, and I think each person should have 1 vote. I don't think there could be, well, I guess there could be a combination where there would be, yeah, what you were saying. Then I think if there was, like, let's say a 3-3 and someone didn't vote, then it would be between those 2 people, but each person should still have to state who they voted for. I think, and Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you wanted a transparent vote, people saying who they voted for, because that's the way it had been done in the past. And I think that's important, so that the public knows. So a transparent vote, a roll call vote, I think would be important. But if there was, and then maybe this is where I'm not clear, if there's a 3-3 and someone doesn't vote, then it's just going to be who gets to the draw to nominate. You need to clarify that for me.
So normal procedure would be then, if you look at Robert's rule in these situations, I think it suggests that then you open it up for nominations, not for voting, for just nominations. And so you throw the 2 names. And let's say you had a preference of 2 individuals, and only one of those 2 got up to nomination, then you'd be looking at a motion to do that. If again, it's affirmed that those 2 are a preference and they're both nominated, then you'd probably go into discussion either before or after a motion was made, likely after a motion was made for one individual, of speaking in favor of that individual, or maybe you say, I'm not going to vote in favor of this individual, and here's why I champion the other individual we discussed. So at least there's a discussion of why you're the pros of the individual. So that's how you'd sort of follow it from a Roberts perspective.
Rob?
Yeah, that's what I had in mind. And Victoria kept saying it could be 3-3 or whatever, and someone doesn't vote. It could be 3-3-1 also. All 7 could vote, and you could still end up being 3-3. But I would assume at that point, the person who voted for the 1, that 1 would obviously drop out. No one's going to nominate them because it'd be a waste of time. So then we would nominate one of the 3s, and there'd be we would talk about the benefits and of each candidate. But that's kind of what I was thinking it should be, rather than, and that way no one with a less than 4 votes could possibly win, right? We don't, because it could actually, we could end up with a 3-2-2 situation, but I don't want the person who gets 3 to automatically be the winner on that first round, right? We'd have to go back to do the nomination thing, and then the lower vote people would probably drop off. So that's kind of what I had in mind, at least for the council position.
Rick?
So historically, over time, what we've seen with the preference sheet, when a person has a preference, and if that person that they have a preference for only has 1 counselor indicating that, in the past, they've always changed their mind and they've gone with the majority of the people. So there's never been a tie, per se. So it's taken care of itself.
So at this point, I'm seeing, out of the discussion between the 3 counselors, I'm seeing that 2 of the counselors are looking to see if we can just basically do a roll call vote per person as we go, or we go through a preference list and then wait for a nomination. So again, I'm waiting for a motion. I know you did have a certain motion, Victoria, but it was a little bit too complicated
Right,
for me to understand.
I would like to amend my motion and make a motion for a single roll call vote.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to pick candidates with a single roll call vote.
I second it.
Got a second on Kathleen? Any further discussion? Joel, sorry, and then Aaron wants to weigh in.
I just had a point of clarification. There would be no preference indicated then ahead of time? Okay.
That was my clarifier, is that would, based on the motion, my interpretation would be there would not be preference polls established. It would be more following like Robert's rule, where you would open for nominations. And you can nominate, and it doesn't require a first or a second to nominate that person. Council can nominate, so you may have 1 or 5 people nominated, and then you discuss the strengths of those 5, and then you go into a motion and you vote on it, something along those lines. So you open it up for nominations, and there's an open nomination. You might only get 1, or you might get 2 or 3, and then you have to figure out who you're going to, or someone will need to make a motion on one of those nominations.
So the way I understand Victoria's motion, that we would not be doing that.
You would not be doing the preference polling in advance and turning them in, and then having the mayor say, okay, here's a preference, a 3, 3, and 1 preference. You've got a tie, or 4, 2, 1, or whatever it is. That preference polling will not be existing. And I want to make sure I'm clear on that, because I want to make sure staff, if we need to provide the preference poll sheets, we will. And if not, I want to be clear, we don't have to do those for this Wednesday night. With this motion passing, we will not provide you with preference poll documents.
So, yeah, and to clarify, with this motion on the table, you would take out, I mean, we could actually put in previous of it, but basically when you do the preference polling, you open up the opportunity for council members to champion a certain person before we go into nomination. If you're just doing a roll call vote, there can be discussion beforehand for people to champion each one, or, I mean, that would have to kind of be worked in too here, but as the motion is on the table, it would be a simple roll call vote. Victoria?
And I think that between the interviews and our own, at home, just looking at further at the information we've been given, that we can come with our individual clear vote. I just think that's more in keeping with one person, one vote, and it's less complicated. So that's why I prefer it, among many other reasons.
Okay, we're still in the middle of discussion, so Rob and then Indra.
Okay, I'm still not sure if I understand, and I'm sorry to be dense here, but so we would take we'll say the simpler way, maybe Victoria's plan might be the simpler way, anyone could nominate anyone. We could have 2 or 3 nominations.
There would be no nominations with the motion on the floor.
So basically it's the first person that nominates. Victoria keeps shaking her head. No, I don't.
There's no nomination. What's on? And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Okay,
basically, what the motion on the floor is I will go through and read the first person, the
Right.
first candidate, and have a roll call vote,
Okay.
and that will be tallied. We'll go through the next person and have a roll call vote.
And if that
and that will
person
be
gets
tallied.
4 votes, it's over, or how does that work?
Each counselor gets 1 vote.
But I'm saying if the tally on that 4, then it's over. Then
So
that
if you
person is won.
go candidate 1 through 4, if candidate 1 is put up and that person gets 1 vote, candidate 2 gets 3 votes, candidate 4 gets so-and-so, whoever gets the most votes is going to win.
But even that gets back to my point before. Someone could then win with less than a majority vote if it was 3-3-1. This is why, and I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just, Victoria's shaking her head, no, you kind of think that's the way it should be, so I'm just trying to be clear on what we're all agreeing to.
I don't think the math would work out that way, because if everybody gets 1 vote.
But 3-3-1 is 7. We have 7 people, so it could be 3-3-1.
There could be a tie. Well, then basically, if it's 3-3-1, then yeah, okay, Rob, I apologize. I do see the clarity in what you're saying now. So I guess that brings it back to you, Victoria. So if you had a tie where Rob is explaining it and I'm the dense one here because he had to beat it in my head a little bit, which is, I thank you very much. So if we end up with 2 3s, would you bring those 2 people back? And
If we have a ballot with all candidates on it, and our name is on it, so you can do the roll call, so it's the transparent vote, I think, well, I guess it is possible. So in the event that it would happen, that there would be, you only get to vote for 1 person. So, and there are 7 of us. I guess the math is possible where, right. And so then I guess we would have to go to the nomination process after that. But I think the 1 person, 1 vote would have to be the first option, and then we would have to move to the parliamentary procedure of nominations in case 1 person wasn't the clear winner with 1 person, 1 vote. But I would want to start, my motion is we have all candidates on 1 ballot, and we all vote for 1 person.
okay, I'm going to clarify this again.
That still doesn't solve our problem. That still doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah,
Just do the basic arithmetic, because you could still end up with 3-2-2.
Correct.
And then no one's got a majority.
Exactly.
So the winner, the highest vote getter, would we actually have a city councilor where a minority of us want that person? That's the issue now, if it was 3-2-2.
If clarify, am I wrong here? As per charter, you councilors vote, there's 7 councilors, and if you got a 3-3-1, then I would break the tie.
Again, my question is, could someone win with a minority vote? Could we have a minority vote winner win? If there was 3-2-2, there's no tie, but no one has gotten a majority. And I don't think that we should be nominating someone or electing someone for a city council seat with a minority. And it could be that, the way you 2 have just described it.
I'm not following, I need clarity, I'm not following this process that was just discussed here. And so really the way Robert sort of follows it is the mayor opens the floor for nominations. Any nominations? The nominations go through. Okay, we get 2 or 3 names for nominations. He asks again, any further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, I close the floor to further nominations. Now you have 3 candidates that you're looking at. So then you champion those 3 candidates. Someone can make a motion on those 3 candidates. I motion that we appoint Mr. Smith to the Budget Committee. And if they pass, they pass, after you've had a discussion of the pros and cons. And that's how it's done, sort of Robert's rule. That's the simple way. This other part, I was concerned, I think Councilor Pell was concerned about the numbers and stuff. You don't have that issue with just following that type of process. And what I can do is, if that's the way you want to do that, I'll make sure it's very clear. I'll provide you with a little, by email, I'll provide you with a little sample of what that would look like in email today before you have to go into the meeting Wednesday to go through this process.
And I think a way I understand that, Aaron, too, is that it's at the discretion of council to appoint either committee or a councilor. So that would actually, that puts it at the council discretion where they may have seen 4 applicants, but maybe it's not council discretion that they even want to entertain 4 applicants. They only want to entertain 3 applicants through the nomination process. So,
But there is a motion.
yes, there is a motion. We're still in the middle of discussion, so we're still discussing. We have a motion on the floor with a second, and we have not gone to a vote. We're still in discussion. Rick and then Indra.
So Victoria, isn't the focus here transparency?
Oh, absolutely.
So again, the reason I like the preference sheet, everybody signs it and indicates what their preference is. And if you want to know, and it's public information, the mayor can read each person who they preferred, and say which counselor preferred which candidate. You go through that whole list, and then after that whole list, you're looking for the person that probably had the highest preference among the whole council members to have a motion follow that. So I don't know. Okay.
The reason why I don't necessarily like that is what you mentioned, the person has often changed their vote to the top getter, and that describes ranked choice voting, and and that is essentially what ranked choice voting is, so I wouldn't prefer that. But but the motion on the table, it would work, but council would have to, within the motion that I have on the table, and I'm not saying that it's a good, because I hadn't really thought through that, it could be a 3-3-2, and then it would be the mayor who broke the tie. And so the person who becomes the city councilor will have 4 votes, but it will, in the event that it's a 3-3-2 vote, mayor will break the tie between the 2 people who got 3 votes. So it's the same, it's still the same motion. So it would work that way.
So we have a motion on the table and a second, but we're still in the middle of discussion. So Indra?
I'm in favor of the nominations. It just seems so much simpler, and it is going to be a one person, one vote, because whoever wants to nominate someone. And what if on the budget committee, there's just 2 nominated? Then that's like an easy snap thing, and we don't have to go through all this. And if there are 3, people can talk about why they want their person, but then we still do a roll call one at a time for each one. So it is one, that's my understanding, it's one person, one vote. And then the council members should be simple, that's just one person for the position, correct?
Thanks, Indra. We're still in discussion, and Victoria?
I think maybe the reason why I don't like the nomination process is it's just who's quickest to nominate. So I suppose we could go through, I mean, everyone could be nominated, I suppose, but the way that I see it is I'm talking about city councilor now, we have 5 candidates, and it could be a 3-3, and there's 1 ballot. Each of us only votes for 1 person, and we could have a 3-3, well, I guess 3
people get nominated?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
We could have a 2-2-2. Actually, the math doesn't work that way. We can't have a 3-3-2. It's not possible. We don't have 8 people. So I don't think the scenario that Rob was talking about could happen, but there's another iteration of math that could happen. But if there is a tie between 2 candidates, then the mayor is going to break the tie, and it's 1 ballot. So I see that as simpler. I see that as much more simple than the nomination process and the discussion. It's just 1 ballot. And in case of a tie between 2, then mayor would break the tie.
Still in the middle of discussion. Rob?
Okay, so I think it's a simple solution. And so, Victoria, I never said that 3-3-2 could happen. You just said that. I said 3-3-1, or I said 3-2-2. Okay. Those all add up to 7. But I think what Aaron mentioned, let's just say, to play this out, let's just say there was 3 nominations. We open up to nominations. There's 3 nominations. To me, it would seem as though the first person to get 4 votes wins. And, you know, which would be pretty simple. Now, if we went through that and we would vote one at a time, there's a certain number of nominations, first person to get 4 votes would win. If no one gets 4 votes, I guess, where do we stand at that point if people dig in and no one gets 4 votes?
Then what you could do is you can have by motion to reopen for nominations, and you redo the nomination confirming the 3, or maybe the 3 now is dropped down to 2, and then you do the same process again.
So we keep playing it out until somebody gets 4 votes?
That's correct, Councilor.
And there's no tie. Thank you.
Indra?
So just to clarify, with that nomination process, it's not like one is nominated and you vote on them. There's several nominations, and then there's a discussion for all of them, correct?
There
And
could
then-
only be one nomination.
Right, but
It
if
could be
there-
that council is all in agreement with one candidate, so there's only one nomination.
Okay.
If there's multiple candidates that council's interested in, then there'll be multiple nominations.
So say there's 3 nominations, and then we would discuss that, and then we would have a vote, and we would pick one, right? And then we would do the second vote for the budget committee. And
Yeah, the first person who has the majority of votes does get the
Right.
seat.
So if you have 3, then the majority 4 vote, that person
3 would
gets
fail.
in.
Three in positive would be a fail, would not be a.
Right, and then you're down to 2, and you vote on one of those, and they either get in or not.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Joel?
So I'm thinking of the popular song, I Can See Clearly Now, but I can't. So where I'm a little bit confused, okay, we open up the nominations. You can nominate more than, the council as a whole can nominate more than one person. If there's a tie, then I've heard 2 scenarios after the tie. One is, according to Robert's Rules of Order, if I understood correctly, Clint would break the tie. The other thing I heard was if it's a tie, then you open up the nomination process again for those 2 highest people that tied. Now, it can't be both. Which is it?
I think under the motion that I'm making, it would be, the only possible way we could get a tie would be a 3-3-1. So that would be 2 top people, and Clint would break the tie.
So at this moment in time, we still have a motion on the floor with the second. The motion on the floor is to do roll call vote going from the top of the list to the bottom of the list with no nominations. Is there further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
When you say roll call, we're going to go through each person and yay, nay? That's what you mean by roll call? Or are we going to have a ballot where we only vote for one, it gets passed to you, and you read the roll call?
It's splitting hairs. You guys are all talking about transparency, so why waste a piece of paper?
Okay, yeah.
So I'm interpreting your motion to say, candidate number 1, Rob, Indra, Rick, blah, 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 blah. Candidate number 2, and then we tally them. That's the way I'm interpreting your nomination. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Just to be clear, so Victoria, just to be clear, someone who only gets 3 votes could be the winner in this system. Because it could be 3-2-2, right?
They would get a 4th vote because the mayor would break the tie.
No, there's no ties. It could be 3-2-2. And under your motion, someone who gets only 3 votes could then be the new city councilor. Is that correct? Am I hearing you correctly?
I suppose so, yes.
Okay, I'd be completely against that. Thank you.
okay, so we've had lots of discussion on this. We do have a motion on the floor. The motion on the floor is for a roll call vote per candidate. If a tie is present with a 3-3-2 vote, then mayor would break the tie. We'll go through a roll call vote for this motion. Rob? Yay or nay?
No.
Indra?
No.
Rick?
I'm a diehard for preference, no.
Eric?
Yes.
And Kathleen?
Yes.
Joel?
I don't like it with only 3 votes winning, so I'd say no.
Victoria?
Yes.
Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, so motion does not pass. So we'll open the floor back up for discussion and or motion. Rick?
I'd like to make a motion that the preference sheet be used and that the preference sheet be read aloud showing the preference of each individual counselor.
So motion on the table at this moment for the use of a preference sheet, but with a caveat that the preference sheet be read allowed for accountability. And then from the preference sheet, open for nomination? We got to kind of play the whole thing out here.
Yes, after the preference sheet is read, then the floor would be open for nomination. It can be plural, 2 nominations or single nomination.
And then discussion and after nominate or the motion is played through. Okay, so before I ask for a second, I'm going to reread this. So motion on the floor to use of a preference list with being read aloud, open floor for nomination for multiple candidates or one candidate, and then a roll call vote after, or discussion, and then a roll call vote afterwards. Okay, do we have a second or discussion? Victoria.
Just a point of clarification, we would only be showing preference for one candidate, is that correct? Okay.
Correct. For clarification, the preference list will be for one candidate preference per counselor. Okay, everybody clear on that? And I do have a second. Indra.
So are we talking just the council or the budget committee too? Because.
Not the council first.
Okay. Because if it's the budget committee, we have two to elect. Council.
If it's the budget committee, to keep it simple, we'll have 2 forms because you'll vote for one person at a time in the budget. So you'll vote twice for budget. You'll have 2 separate preference forms for budget. You'll have 1 form for city council.
So just to reiterate what Aaron said, for the council, it would be 1 preference sheet across the board. For the committee, since we have 2 positions, you'll get 2 preference sheets, and we'll do them one at a time. Okay, and we have a second. Is there any more discussion?
Okay, so I'm just want to be completely clear if I understand.
No problem, Rob, go ahead.
Preference sheet, okay, so there could be three different preferences, whatever, but then the purpose of that is everyone gets to know what our first preference would be, but then after that, we actually have to vote, and maybe someone has backed somebody that only had 1 vote. It's clear they're not going to win, so they would then probably choose to back someone else. But in any event, the first person that gets 4 wins. Okay, there's still no guarantee that anybody's going to get 4 that way. So then the question is, what do you do? I mean, the other way, if we open it up to nominations, there could be X number of people nominated. I guess it's kind of the same thing. Then it's still the first person to 4 would win. I guess if we did the preference sheet, anybody who's the lowest vote getter could be dropped off, but you could still have a 3-2-2. But there's still, it's not clear to me how we end up with somebody getting 4 votes so that the actual council majority wants to see that person in a seat. I'm not sure if we've gotten there.
So as the motion is on the floor, the preference sheet will go across. Everybody will have 1 preference voted on the preference sheet. I will read the preferences out loud, which should bring it down to people, and then the floor will be open for nominations. So the only people that will be voted on are the people that would be nominated. But the preference sheet, as I'm understanding it, is going to give the whole public what people are preferring, and it's a narrowing exercise is the way I understand it. But after the preference sheet is read aloud, then the table will be open for nominations, and if only 1 person gets nominated, then that's the only person you vote on. If 2 people get nominated, then you vote on those two people with a roll call vote. Is that correct, Rick? Okay, does that make sense, Rob?
It makes sense. It's still, I don't see a guarantee that somebody ends up with 4 votes that way. Aaron, do you see what I'm talking about?
I do, and Councilor Pell's correct. There's no guarantee that you still might get a majority of the council, and so let's say you don't, and you don't have a majority to pass it, you would continue to open up the floor for nominations or pass that paper out again so people can have, and you would want to discuss those candidates. You'd want to try, and I think the mayor at this point would once those original nominations, or let's say there's 3 candidates for 1 position and no one got a majority from council, I think at that point the mayor would want to, from a facilitation standpoint, and open up to council and say, okay, let's have a discussion here on those 3 candidates. Let's tell me the positives, try to convince your fellow council members why you should vote for this, and then reopen up the voting again and see if it would pass.
Yes, so Rob, so I believe there's going to be that slight chance, but we're kind of hoping the exercise does narrow it down. That's kind of the way I'm understanding.
And then we take whatever, basically under this scenario, which I probably agree with, we take whatever time we need to get to a majority winning.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a iterative process.
And if somehow that doesn't happen because whatever reason, we could table it until our next meeting rather than keep people here to midnight.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying,
I think that's also a possibility. I think you've hit on all the possibilities.
Okay,
So I
okay.
think, yeah. So we have a motion and a second on the table. We're open for discussion. Indra and then Victoria.
I like what we just discussed. I mean, this is an important position, and so I think we leave it open for discussion until there is a majority that decide. That's important to me.
And Victoria?
And I just want to thank everybody for going through all of it, even though it's a little tedious, because on our first vote, to me, the way that it happened was not as clear as I thought it could be. So I thank everyone for making sure that this one will be, and when we get here, we'll know exactly how we're voting. So I guess I just wanted to say thank you.
And hopefully it's transparent enough to where everybody's happy with that part. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for a preference list to be read out loud, open for nominations for candidates to be voted on with a roll call vote. Multiple candidates can be motioned in at that point. The difference between the council position and the Budget Committee Commission is the Budget Committee will be in a 2-cycle. Council will be in a 1-cycle. We have a second on the floor. Go through any more discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call vote. Victoria?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Kathleen? Eric?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Unanimously passed. So we will go, you understand, do I have to say it again?
Yes, I've got clear direction. Thank you for summarizing that, Mayor. I will have those preference polls ready for you Wednesday.
Thank you. And hopefully, I think this just shows how you guys come together to solve a problem. I mean, you guys did great. No, it's like we went back and forth. We beat our heads against the wall, but it's good. It's good. It's, you know, it's good. That's a compliment to everybody. Okay, so back to agenda review. Does anybody else have anything else to do with it? Yeah, it's right here. Joel.
Well, on the agenda review, one of the things that strikes me is we've heard a lot of people talk about economic development. We haven't really, we've done some things on the periphery, and it's a wide subject that a lot of different individual subjects address. But I wouldn't want to schedule it at this time, but I'd want to put it on the back of the agenda so that at some point in time when it's ripe, that we look at what we need to do with economic development.
Very good.
And I think we need to address it as an objective.
I believe so, and we will put it on the back. Items to be scheduled for the future council meeting. Economic development. Duly noted. Kathleen.
Yeah, we got this memo last session about the different grants and how what their limits are, what their funding sources are, what their matches. And I was wondering if we can bring that to topic too for discussion about how these are given out to the community and in what increments. And I think that needs some discussion. Is that, do we put that on the back?
And you're specifically referencing the council memo. What date is that?
That is February 4th. We got the memo, Grants Pass Grant Program Updates.
Okay. Okay, duly noted. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to, oh, yes, sir, Rob.
I sent out an email the other day that I was concerned that there was a chance that we could go into our Wednesday night meeting wanting to open 3 resting sites and possibly only having 3 on our possibilities before we've even heard from the public. And I wanted to consider 2 other sites at least tomorrow night, and the 2 that I mentioned were 6th and A and Riverside West. But I don't feel comfortable going into a meeting considering 3 sites and then choosing the only 3 sites, regardless of what the public has to say. So I'd like to have at least a 4th and maybe a 5th site that we're considering tomorrow night, and I'd like to have staff prepared to talk about those 2 sites, or when I say talk about, I mean cost estimates or whatever they're going to do for the first 3 sites with regards to cost estimates. I'd like them to be ready to discuss another site or 2. So I'd like at least 2 other councilors to back me on that if they think it's reasonable.
So Rob's got a suggestion on the table to bring a couple different sites back to, even, we did go through that workshop and narrow the sites down. That's why we got to it. But after second thinking, it seems like Rob wants to bring a couple more sites there. Do we have any more discussion on that? Kathleen?
Yeah, I think we didn't go over the funding process enough. What like the cost estimates that he's referring to, and how much it's actually going to cost the city for each site, and I think that needs to be a little bit more clear.
I believe the funding portion of each individual site will be within the presentation of the Wednesday meeting. So we do have some desire, one councilor has a desire to bring a couple more sites back on, specifically naming 2. Any discussion or? Go ahead, Indra. Looks like you're just ready to raise your hand.
Well, I don't know if it has to do, obviously, with the sites, but as I'm hearing from people, I'm just wondering, because I felt a little rushed with picking the sites, honestly, or picking which not sites to have. And so we did initially talk about the negative route, but then that was quickly quashed, and I don't know if no one else but me is interested in. I think the public should know that that is also an option, and not just putting a site here and here and here and here, because honestly they don't want it. So I'm wondering if that's even an option to do, or if that's completely off the table.
Yes, Councilor, great comments. And it's okay that you feel rushed on this, because you are. Some things you have, there's a time frame and a time commitment that's not an emergency. In this situation, there could be considered a time that we need to respect when it comes to making a decision. Because of where we are now, if we don't provide a response on additional time and place, what we are currently living under now will become an injunction that we'll have to live with for a longer period of time. So the reason why council has moved so quickly on this is to try to avoid that and get into a position that will be more favorable for us ultimately in this lawsuit that we're in. When it comes to the positive versus the negative, and just to recap what that means, the positive means this is where you can rest and camp, versus that's considered positive, versus these are the areas you can't rest and camp, and that would be considered negative. So there's policy decisions associated that are potentially pros and cons with both of those, as we may have discussed, and we'll discuss, I'm sure, in the future. We're currently in a positive framework. in order to respond quickly and make a positive change in the case that's against us now, we need to stay in the positive realm because we are flexible and can move in that way. Just by resolution, we can make a change, and that's why we could respond so quickly Wednesday night. It doesn't take off the table of discussion for in the future, do we want to look at more of the negative policy perspective of this is where you can't go instead of this is where you can go. It will provide us, it'll provide you as a council by making the decisions that you're asking to make Wednesday. It will provide the time for you to be able to move forward and maybe change the scope and the policy of how we regulate time, place, and manner within the city of Grants Pass. So this is a positive for us to get to a place where you can have a further discussion about do we want to maintain positive versus negative when it comes to the policy development. So it doesn't take it off the table. It provides us an opportunity to move forward in a positive direction without moving into injunction the way this is currently written.
Victoria, let me start. Indra.
I'm just following. Okay, so I do understand that. I'm unclear, I guess, on how you said in the future. How long are we talking in the future, I guess would be my major concern. 6 months, a year?
Sure. We're going to hopefully move through this court thing as quickly as possible and get to some conclusions on this. And I think when it comes to moving forward and having that discussion, part of that I can't predict to you when, because there's going to be a couple moving parts that prevent me from stating exactly a date on when we can start having that additional policy discussion.
Okay. And then this relates to Rob's suggestion. I too would want to open other sites because just representing Ward 1, it seems heavy with the sites and the larger sites. And so just to be fair, I would like to find a site in each ward if we could to spread it out.
So that can be as well as discussion too. One suggestion I do want to, or one thing I want to bring up that was advised to us by Chief was, if you spread them out, it's harder for them to monitor them. So yeah, I know you want to put the burden across all wards, but it's been recommended and I think suggested by our police and fire that they are being more centrally located so they can be monitored better without spreading resources. That's what I took out of it. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, and if council so desires to want us to add the two that Councilor Pell mentioned, we'd be more than happy to add that in the presentation, which ultimately you can make a modification to the resolution that's in your packet. But the key is we do need a resolution passed Wednesday for our benefit.
So Rob has put up a suggestion to add a couple more sites. Indra seems to be on board with that. Any further discussion or anybody else want to champion the idea of putting a couple more sites up? Eric?
What about other possibilities, other options that we did not look at that are city property and that aren't the ones that Rob talked about? I know it's extending this thing a lot and it's asking a lot from the staff to figure out more research, but are there other options that were not looked at?
We brought forward to you when we had that workshop for you, really the only options we had that had any type of city-owned property that we had immediate control over, that had a size and a potential use that's permitted in the zone for this type of activity. There aren't a lot of other options that we thought of that would be able to work for this. The city does not own a lot of property in industrial and commercial zones, and those are really the two zones that this type of activity is permitted.
Victoria and then Rick.
It's my understanding that the sites, it would be very much to our benefit if they are paved. So that would be something that needs to be in consideration and opening up any others. I'm not saying that I am in favor of doing that, but that would be a consideration that would be important.
Rick?
I'm not opening this for discussion right now, but one of the constituents approached me and says, why can't we use the vacant Selma School? And I realize that's out of town and really doesn't meet certain requirements, but the thing is, it would be covered, it would be, if it were on the table as a place, it would have a lot of accommodations, but I don't think that's up for discussion right now, but just a thought in the back of our minds. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Any further discussion? Okay, so Rob has a suggestion, and Indra has jumped on board with him. Anybody else want to go along? Or are you guys good with the existing sites? Rick, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Oh, okay, you got Rick in there. Joel, comments?
Well, I got mixed feelings because of my attachment to the different sites, which may not be appropriate, I don't know. Before, I was very critical of zeroing in and actually even not telling the adjacent landowner before the camps were put in, and all of a sudden they came to work Monday morning and here's this camp next to them, and there was no option given to them at all. That was obviously, in my mind, abuse of power. So we're having a public disclosure. We can open it up to more sites. I think, to me, the more important thing, regardless of the number of sites, is that we make a decision. And how we get there and making that decision, public involvement, if it involves more sites, so be it. If it doesn't, so be it. But we need to make a decision.
So the consideration is to add 2 more sites specifically named to the consideration for Wednesday night, not to add more sites to open. Is that the way I understand it, Rob? Yeah. Correct. Okay. So it looks like we got 3 counselors on board with that. So can you please add A and 6th and Riverside?
We'll do that, Mayor. Thank you.
Kathleen?
I wanted to suggest also the 850 East Park Street beside, the paved piece beside the firehouse station.
So you've got 3 counselors that are adding, you want to add another one, you got to confer with?
Instead of one of the other ones. Do you want to know which one I mean?
So you want to put up the park paving for, the paved parking lot for along in Park Street to replace which one?
601 I Street.
Oh, completely different. Okay, now we're getting into major deliberation.
So, yeah, in this situation, I think, Mayor, what you need to do is ask if council is interested in adding another alternative for your consideration Wednesday night, which would be the location on Park Street, which we're aware of, that's by the fire station.
So I'm going to take it as Kathleen is suggesting to add the paved Park Street parking lot to be a third consideration to the 2 already put in. I'm going to look right at Rob and Indra and Rick if you guys are on board with that. Rick says no, Indra says yes, Rob says yes. Joel?
I would say no, and again, because of the fire hazard down there in the riparian areas where we've had numerous fires by transients in the past. And the other thing is the Rogue River is a corridor for wind from low pressure to high pressure.
Council, I think at this time it may be premature, Mayor, for us to start taking reasons for and against, but I just need to know an interest in adding these. You can have your discussion on those properties Wednesday night. I just need direction on what properties you want it to be considered.
There were 3 people for that.
Okay, so, and that would be you?
No, it was Rob and Kathleen, I believe.
Yep, okay, so add I Street in there, or no, sorry, Park Street, paved parking lot for paved Park Street. So, I just want to add one comment to this whole conversation. If you guys are I'm at the point here, constituents are going to be talking to us, people are going to be coming out of the woodwork, and we're not going to please anybody. But you guys have to keep it in mind and also educate your constituents. This is not something that you wanted to do. This is not something I wanted to do. This is being forced on us by the state. These, you know, they need to start, they need to start going up the food chain, because there's only so much we can do, and I believe that this council is acting as efficiently and as fast as they possibly can to alleviate the current situation. And I have all the faith in the world that we'll get to the end of this, and I respect everybody's opinion and their effort in tackling this challenge as we have. So please remind your constituents that the buck doesn't stop here, that we lack a lot of control in this, and that they need to start talking to their state representatives and people in Salem. With that, if there's no more discussion, we're going to adjourn this council or this workshop and go into executive session. The council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing those subjects previously noticed for this executive session. This executive session is held pursuant ORS 192.660, and more specifically under the subsections of that statute, which have been publicly noticed for this meeting. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are now asked to leave the room, which they have done. Thank you. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of this